recorded history, man has labored to improve the material well-being of himself and his loved ones, to secure more food, better shelter, and finally, additional conveniences. In America, under a written constitution that established a limited form of government, man made great leaps forward in a relatively short period of time. Here, where man was really free for the first time, his unrestrained ingenuity increased productivity enormously to achieve an abundance of material blessings only dreamed of in ancient times. The proverbial horn of plenty has truly overflowed. The variety and volume of material goods available today would have staggered the senses of history's mightiest and richest kings. Despite their power and riches, they had no access to the abundance available to the average American like Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And Mr. and Mrs. Jones stroll through their material wonderland, taking it all for granted, showing concern only when something distracts them. Mrs. Jones picks up a loaf of bread and is about to put it in her basket when she notices the price, 42 cents. She stops, thinks back to last week when she shopped, and recalls that the same loaf of bread was 39 cents. She's upset, of course, and complains to Mr. Jones that everything seems to be going up. They're both quick to blame this particular price increase on the store, on the baker, and of course, the wheat grower. Unfortunately, the Joneses have completely overlooked the real culprit in creating what they think of as inflation. Most people think that inflation is the rising price level of goods and services, but this is not strictly so. For the rising prices are a result of inflation, not inflation itself. Inflation is defined as an increase in the volume of money and credit relative to available goods, resulting in a substantial and continuing rise in the general price level. There's nothing deep or hard to grasp about inflation. When the amount of money and credit in circulation increases at the same rate as productivity increases the amount of goods available, prices of the available goods remain generally stable. But should the amount of money and credit in circulation increase without a corresponding increase in the amount of available goods, prices of available goods will be forced upward by the inflated volume of money and credit. In an exchange economy such as the United States, people exchange their labor or goods and services for the thing called money, which they then use to purchase the goods and services they desire. If the items used as money have no actual value, nor are they representative of and redeemable in something that does have actual value, the money itself cannot be considered real wealth. Unvalued money is fiat money, and people accept it for their goods and services, and hope that they will be able to exchange the fiat money for the goods and services of others. Such an arrangement can be quite convenient, but is also subject to an obvious weakness. The items actually used as money do not come into existence automatically. They are created by someone out of something. Of the many items that have been used as money, the most successful has been gold, which possesses certain special qualities. Gold has value in itself, for as a commodity it has numerous uses. As a medium of exchange, gold was and still is highly dependable. For although the supply can be increased, the increase is limited by how rapidly it can be located, mined, and processed. Unfortunately, gold's scarcity, an asset that makes it desirable as a medium of exchange, can also present a serious problem. As a population grows and the amount of goods available increases, what happens to the need for money in circulation? A simple illustration answers the question. Two people, using money to exchange their goods and services to each other, find it desirable to have 6 pieces of money available to efficiently carry on the exchange process. If a third person joins the group and adds to the supply of goods and services available, a larger total number of pieces of money will be necessary if the exchange process is to function as efficiently as when there were only 2 people. When gold is the only medium of exchange in use, unless the supply increases as rapidly as the population and the amount of goods and services available, the exchange process becomes restricted. Gold is somewhat limited in its ability to meet every legitimate need for an increase in the amount of money in circulation. The use of printed paper money as a medium of exchange goes back in history many centuries and appears to have begun in China. Marco Polo returned from China with with a tale of how the Emperor Kublai Khan had seized all the gold in his domain, and then issued pieces of paper with a value written on them, which the people had to accept at face value. This scheme soon found favor in other parts of the world. Governments discovered they could obtain money by simply printing paper, and they did so. The results of fiat money have always been disastrous for the people who actually created the goods and services that existed. The experience of the people of Germany following World War I is a graphic example. In 1922, the people of Germany were suffering through severe shortages of material goods and rapidly rising prices, while their political leaders were increasing government spending and simply issuing unbacked paper money to pay the bills. This irresponsible inflation of the money supply, which had already driven the value of the German mark down to 162 to $1 US from the pre-1914 level of 4.2 to $1 US, rapidly reached incredible proportions. The German mark, from the level of 162 to $1 US in early 1922, fell to over 4 trillion marks to $1 US on November 20th, 1923. In Germany, million, billion, and finally trillion mark notes became commonplace but worthless. The postage to send a local letter was 100 billion marks, and a sack of paper money brought only a single loaf of bread. Those on fixed incomes and the thrifty, responsible people who had savings, insurance policies, and other investments lost everything they had worked a lifetime for. They were the victims of their own government's manipulation of the money supply. Attempts by governments to manipulate the amount of money in circulation have always been disastrous. When a government has the power to create money, those in power simply create new money whenever they want more money to spend. History clearly shows that governments have been the most consistently guilty party in the inflation of the money supply. During the American Revolution, paper money was issued by the Continental Congress to pay the cost of the war. The paper money was unbacked and soon became almost worthless as an acceptable medium of exchange. This gave birth to the phrase, "not worth a continental." Just a few years later, the drafters of the United States Constitution, drawing from the lessons that history offered, especially the disastrous experience of the previous decade, gave only limited monetary power to the new government. Article 1, Section 8 provides, "The Congress shall have power to coin money and regulate the value thereof." This granted to government the power to create money in a very restricted manner, the coining of money. The drafters of the Constitution were men of wisdom and foresight. They knew that even though the government they were creating was designed to serve the people rather than rule them, the powers it would have must, through necessity, be placed at the disposal of those who are elected or appointed to high office. So they proceeded on a basis so clearly stated by Thomas Jefferson. "In question of power, let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution." In monetary matters, that is exactly what the Constitution does. To coin money was the only power to create money granted to the government, and coining money means just that and nothing more. Since the United States government has only the legitimate power to coin money, just who has the right to print paper money? The answer is simple. The Declaration of Independence declared that governments have no legitimate powers except those granted to them by the people. This principle of consent of the governed is the basis upon which the United States government was established. The powers granted to the United States government in the Constitution do not include the power to print paper money, and in no state constitution have the people of any state given that power to their state government. So, as incredible as it may sound, the people have obviously reserved to themselves the right to issue mediums of exchange in any form other than coins. By the way, the viewer, before reacting to this startling but undeniable truth by rushing out to purchase a printing press, paper, and ink, should note that a natural barrier exists that makes it impractical for everyone to create their own medium of exchange. Mr. Jones and anyone else has the right to print their own medium of exchange, but they have no power to compel anyone to accept it as payment of debts or in exchange for goods and services. Unless a paper currency has been proclaimed legal tender by government, in which case it must be accepted by the people, it will be accepted only by those who feel it is a valid and redeemable claim against the assets of the issuer.